Over the Pacific, a white object hung in the air with no wings, no exhaust, and no obvious way to stay aloft. For the pilots who saw it, the question was simple: what could move like that? The sighting would become known as the Tic Tac case, named for the object's shape, not its origin. It began in a place where Navy training, advanced sensors, and open ocean met under clear skies. In November 2004, off the coast of Southern California, Navy crews were conducting routine exercises when something unusual entered the picture. What followed was not a single glance, but a chain of reports from air and sea. The setting mattered because this was no lonely backwater. It was one of the most heavily monitored stretches of ocean in the world, where pilots, radar operators, and commanders were trained to notice almost everything. That day, crews on the carrier and aboard an accompanying cruiser reported unusual contacts descending from high altitude. The object seemed to appear where nothing should have been, then vanish from one place and reappear elsewhere. The first strange detail was speed. Witnesses described a target that crossed distance far faster than expected, then stopped short as if it had no inertia to obey. That kind of motion is hard to mistake in a combat aircraft. Then came the shape itself, smooth, white, and featureless, like a piece of candy dropped into the sky. There were no visible control surfaces, no plume, and no sign of a conventional propulsion system. One pilot later said the object looked almost like it was skimming the surface of the ocean before rising again. That low, controlled movement made the encounter feel less like a glitch and more like intent. The reports did not come from a single excited observer. They came from trained military professionals, each seeing the encounter through a different lens, which is part of why the case still carries weight. Onboard sensors added another layer. Radar operators and tracking systems reportedly picked up something moving in ways that did not fit the expected profile of an aircraft, balloon, or weather artifact. That is where the mystery deepened. A visual sighting can be mistaken, but when multiple instruments and multiple witnesses point toward the same anomaly, the story becomes harder to dismiss outright. The most famous account came from a fighter pilot who was vectored toward the contact and saw it up close. He described a craft that seemed to react intelligently, as if it knew it had been found. In the air, the object reportedly accelerated away and then dropped from sight with startling ease. The pilots were left not with a clean answer, but with the unsettling sense that they had just watched something beyond their normal playbook. Years later, the release of cockpit video brought the case into public view. The footage was brief and grainy, yet it gave the encounter a new life because it showed trained crews reacting in real time. What made the video compelling was not that it solved the mystery, but that it preserved the uncertainty. You can hear the calm professionalism in the cockpit, even as the object refuses to behave like anything familiar. Supporters of the extraordinary interpretation point to that combination of testimony, sensor data, and footage. Taken together, they argue, it suggests technology operating beyond known public capabilities. The case also survives because the witnesses did not describe a vague light in the distance. They described a physical object with edges, presence, and behavior that seemed to respond to being tracked. That responsiveness is one of the hardest details to shake. If the object was merely drifting, why did it appear to mirror the pilot's movements and then depart with such precision? Still, investigators and skeptics have offered grounded possibilities, from sensor confusion to misread distance and speed. In fast-moving military environments, perception can be stressed by angle, expectation, and incomplete data. Some have also suggested that the famous video may not capture the full story. A short clip, after all, can leave out the context that would make an object seem either extraordinary or ordinary. Yet even those explanations do not fully erase the broader pattern. The encounter involved more than one platform, more than one witness, and more than one moment of observation. That is why the Tic Tac case remains so difficult to file away. It sits at the intersection of trained testimony, partial instrumentation, and a performance profile that still invites debate. For many who follow the case, the most unsettling question is not whether something was seen, but what kind of thing could do this? A balloon, a drone, an aircraft, or something not yet understood? The Navy pilots were not looking for a mystery that day. They were doing their jobs in a controlled military environment when an object appeared to break the rules they trusted most. That is part of the enduring power of the story. It is not just a strange shape in the sky, but a challenge to the assumptions built into modern aviation and surveillance. If the object was advanced human technology, it raises its own hard questions about secrecy and capability. If it was not, then the encounter hints at a level of performance that still feels almost impossible. The strongest believer case does not require certainty, only seriousness. A disciplined military crew saw something, tracked something, and recorded something that has not been comfortably explained away. And yet the unanswered questions remain stubborn. Why did the object appear to descend from high altitude? Why did it behave so deliberately? And why does the full record still feel incomplete? Those missing pieces are part of why the Tic Tac still lives in the imagination. The case leaves behind not a neat conclusion, but a trail of testimony that keeps pulling attention back to the same point in the sky. In the end, the conventional explanations may account for some of the confusion, but they do not fully capture the feeling described by the people who were there. Something unusual was encountered, and it mattered. That is why the Navy pilots who saw the Tic Tac are still remembered. Their reports sit at the edge of what aviation can explain, where the sky remains larger than our certainty. And somewhere above that dark water, the old question still hangs in the air. If it was not one of ours, then what was it?